Hello and welcome everybody to my second standard video for the year, and today we will be going over Dimir Bounce. Now this is the deck that was the runner-up at the showdown event that happened this past weekend at SCG CON, and this was piloted by Scott McNamara, who also goes by Haumph McNamara on Magic Online and various other places. He plays a ton online, and I've actually interacted with him a few times. Generally is the type of player who prefers playing control decks with a little bit of a twist. And let me tell you, this Dimir deck, it's not just your everyday Dimir deck. It's a Dimir mid-range deck with a twist. It's almost like you took the Dimir mid-range deck and then you took the Otters deck and then you kind of married them together. And what exactly is this deck trying to do? Well, it's got the shell where you still have the ability to curve out with your cheap creatures. You have 4 copies of Spyglass Siren and 4 copies of Stormchaser's Talent, both of which make 1/1s. And then you have Floodpitch Drowner and Fear of Isolation as additional creatures. And then, of course, you have the extremely powerful cards in Kaito Bane of Nightmares and Enduring Curiosity, which kind of gives you that staying power, right? There have been so many games when you play Dimir midrange where if you can resolve Kaito or Enduring Curiosity, they tend to run away with the game. But what makes this deck so special and very different than other Dimir midrange decks? Well, it's the bounce effects. It's the bounce effects. The cards that you really want to pay attention to are 4 copies of Fear of Isolation, which is just absolutely phenomenal in this deck, because it allows you to bounce so many good cards, right? It allows you to bounce Stormchaser's Talent, which just gives you another creature, right? It also lets you bounce Spyglass Siren and Floodpitch Drowner, and it plays 4 copies of Nowhere to Run as its primary removal spell. And that's huge, because now all of a sudden your creature acts as another removal spell because you can bounce Nowhere to Run. The creatures no longer have hexproof from your opponent. Also very relevant in a world where people are playing cards like Snakeskin Veil. Additionally, a new wrinkle, or an addition to this deck that you don't see obviously in the Dimir midrange decks, is 3 copies of Hopeless Nightmare. And this is just basically another awesome card to bounce to the Fear of Isolation and the 4 copies of This Town Ain't Big Enough. This card has really just been the card of Standard over the past couple of sets. I mean, this was first kind of a cute card that you played in the Beanstalk Otters deck or the blue-green deck, right? The blue-green spells deck. And now it's making its way into the Dimir midrange deck, because with This Town Ain't Big Enough, you need to make sure that you have cheap permanents that you play. And this has typically been paired with 4 copies of Stormchaser's Talent. But because the blue-green deck doesn't have cards like Up the Beanstalk or anything like that, it's playing the 3 copies of Hopeless Nightmare as just another way to get value from a really, really pushed cheap card. I mean, this was one of the best commons in the set that you could play it in. And now all of a sudden, I'm so glad that somehow Hopeless Nightmare is a playable card in Standard. So you have 4 copies of Fear of Isolation, 4 copies of This Town Ain't Big Enough to bounce Stormchaser's Talent and Hopeless Nightmare, but you still have that within the context of a very powerful Dimir midrange shell. Additionally, you still have all the same interaction, right? You still get to play Cut Down. You still have Go for the Throat. You have This Town Ain't Big Enough, which also acts as an interactive element. Very, very good against cards like Heartfire Hero, right? Just because you don't want to kill it sometimes. Sometimes you just want to remove the counters, which is nice. And then 4 copies of Nowhere to Run. Right now, we're not living in a world where there's a bunch of big green creatures. The Dimir midrange decks have largely pushed out the Golgari midrange decks. So because Golgari midrange isn't really seeing play, there's no reason to play Go for the Throats. You can just play Nowhere to Run instead, because the most popular creature deck that exists in the format are the Dimir midrange decks and the various Gruul Prowess decks. So this is the base, good interaction, but it's looking to go over the top of a lot of the other midrange strategies with the combination of Fear of Isolation, This Town Ain't Big Enough, with Stormchaser's Talent and Hopeless Nightmare. Mana base largely the same as all the other Dimir midrange decks. And then taking a look at the sideboard, the funny thing is, this is very similar to the Gruul Leyline deck that we saw in the previous video, where, yeah, you can just sideboard into Dimir midrange. 3 copies of Preacher of the Schism in the sideboard, 2 copies of Tishana's Tidebinder, and a Shieldred. right? So if you feel like this package isn't particularly strong, you can just take them out. You can take Hopeless Nightmare against the aggro decks and instead bring in Preachers of the Schism, Shieldreds, more copies of Cutdown, and kind of go about your way in that direction as well. So really, really like the look of this deck, and I am excited to get some matches in with Dimir Bounce. I did forget one thing though, and that's, you know, I'm still getting used to this standard kind of doing the standard breakdown, and I just completely forget. But of course, I do have to give a special shout out to the sponsors of this video. The first one being TCGplayer.com. If you want to pick up some cards to build your Dimir Bounce deck, or any other deck for that matter, or some sealed product, make sure you go to tcgplayer.com and click that affiliate link in the description below before you make any purchases. Additionally, you got to sleeve up those decks, right? You need to bring some playmats and such. Go to heavyplay.com for premium Magic the Gathering supplies and accessories. If you want top-of-the-line deck boxes, playmats, sleeves, dice boxes, and more, go to heavyplay.com/paulcheon for 10% off your first order. Now, we get to the magic. All right, let's win some die rolls. All right. Oh, one more thing, of course. Just say you enjoy this format, right? Or rather, you enjoy the content that I make. And if you do, and you wanted to support the channel in another way, my Patreon is the best way to do so. That's patreon.com/paulcheon. I do want to give a special shout out here to all the patrons. Really do appreciate all your support. It really means a lot and allows me to continue making all this content. I mean, it's honestly what's helped me push the decision to continue making content for 2025. So thank you very much. Access to the Patreon gives you all kinds of different benefits, which you can check out by clicking the link in the description below. Additionally, by just subscribing to the Patreon for free, you will sometimes get access to free videos on top of that. So definitely check all of that out. Okay, here we go. I am not very familiar with this deck. So we are on the draw. Hopefully they're not playing mono red, although on Arena, a lot of people play mono red. I'm going to keep this. I have a 1-drop and a 2-drop, but I'm not sure how good it is. They play a mountain. Oh, Lush Portico. I imagine Hopeless Nightmare is not bad against a Lush Portico deck. But drawing the land there is not great. So it looks like we're playing against some kind of domain strategy here. And, oh, yep, that is totally fine. I mean, this is why it's in the deck. Fear of Isolation. This allows us to play a threat here and play out the Hopeless Nightmare once again, if that's something that we are interested in doing. Overlord of the Hauntwoods is the play from the opponent. Can I bounce that? Non-land. This is a land, right? It's a token land. Yeah, that's unfortunate. All right. Now what do I do? Well, I don't know how good Hopeless Nightmare is right now. I mean, getting the last few cards out of their hand does seem pretty good. All right, let's go with the Hopeless Nightmare. The question is whether or not I should choose to go with This Town Ain't Big Enough, or go for Stormchaser's Talent. And because Stormchaser Talent does allow me to get in for a good amount of damage. All right, let's just go with Stormchaser's Talent here. And then just play Restless Reef. Fear of Isolation. Goodness. What a draw. The only thing is, I'm a little bit concerned about Sunfall. So maybe I just don't run out the Hopeless Nightmare just yet. That way I can maybe flash in a Flood Pitch Drowner. Do have to be careful with kind of how I sequence my attacks. All right, let's do that. I just feel like a Sunfall is likely coming. Oh, Overlord of the Mistmoors is also good, for sure. All right, so now I can go This Town Ain't Big Enough. Bounce a token and the Hopeless Nightmare. Leyline Binding, what the heck? Oh, on a Hopeless Nightmare? Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. All right, 2, 4. Oh my gosh, what a draw. I mean, is that just game? So let's see. I can go 2, 4, 5, 9 damage. Or I can go Hopeless Nightmare, pick this up, 2 damage, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep. Wow, what a draw. Hopeless Nightmare for the win. All right, well, we did it here, folks. Look at that. We got the first one. And the best part is we get to board out all this terrible removal, right? Cut down and nowhere to runs get replaced by duresses, negates, get out seems totally fine. Deshana's Tidebinder also looks good here. Don't really care about Preachers of the Schism or Shieldred, I don't think, or the Gix's Command for that matter. Everything else looks pretty good, so I just kind of have to figure out what the last card I should cut is. Having the 1 copy of Go for the Throat still seems fine, just as a way to kill various creatures. Yeah, this is where I get really stuck. It's a small thing. I'm gonna go with This Town Ain't Big Enough. As I think it's between that or Go for the Throat. I kind of just want all my creatures, I think, and be as proactive as possible. But let's try that. But let me know what you think. Having a Go for the Throat for, if they're playing the Zur version, seems nice to at least have 1. But even then, that doesn't make me want to play Go for the Throat, I don't think. Or Cut Down, rather. This hand is weird. I'll keep. But there's not a lot of interaction. But it's got just a ton of creatures. And I'm hoping that these Spyglass Sirens help me sculpt my hand, basically. Up the Beanstalk is a really problematic card. Yeah, and this is the type of instance where being on the draw is certainly not great. Like, you absolutely want to be in the play here. Don't want that. And yeah, I'm just going to get Spyglass Sirens here going. And just to try to get some damage in the air. And hopefully utilize the maps to find some mana sources if I can. Let's target this Siren. Oh, we hit a land. That was great. Elspeth Smite. Okay. That's fine. So they can go... what is it? Overlord of the Mistmoors? Next turn, which I can counter. I wonder if I just want to do that and just keep up Floodpitch Drowner. Like, I can keep up Get Out for that as an option. I think that's probably better. I think it's pretty important to keep up the Get Out, so... Let's see if this ends up being good for me. Because obviously having double Stormchaser's Talent in play is pretty good. The thought process is if they don't have anything, I'll just play a Floodpitch Drowner, and it's not too bad. Like, that deck just doesn't play a lot of creatures. So just playing anything at instant speed is pretty solid. Now this is interesting. What can I do here? It's like, not having access to the second blue is kind of rough. I guess I can play one Stormchaser's Talent here. Now I don't have the ability to cast Get Out, but I can still play Floodpitch Drowner at instant speed. And I can still bounce something with This Town Ain't Big Enough. So we'll see what happens here. I feel like if they had a creature to impend, then they would have done it already. That's my thought process here. Okay, blue. I mean, this just gets in for the most damage, right? They're at 20 life? Alright. Perhaps this is overextending, but we'll see. What are they targeting? A Stormchaser's Talent? Okay. Okay. Well, now I can feel decent about trying to use some of this for value. I don't think I want that. Just kind of like spread around the love, maybe. All right. Yeah, that's what I was really afraid of. And I just don't have any counter spells. Now I can bounce 2 creatures. Because I don't really want to bounce up the beanstalk, right? Alright, let's bounce the Drowner and... Should it just be both Drowners? I think one of each is not bad, actually. Okay, well that was good. Let's go Hopeless Nightmare. Tishana's Tidebinder, huh? No! It doesn't matter, I guess. Go for the throat. Do I want that? I don't think so. Alright, I got Flood Pitch Drowner here. I was just kind of looking for a counter spell, but... Yep. Yeah, there's not much I can do to that. They're gonna get a million cards here. But that is the nature of Atraxa, and we just don't have... We used the Get Out. That was the issue. To bounce our thing. So, they get a bunch of cards, but hopefully we have enough to push enough damage through here. That is the hope. Temporary Lockdown is actually ridiculous against me. What can I get back? Oh, I can get Get Out back, but the issue is they have Negate as well. Oh, man. Okay. Oh, I can bounce 2 creatures with This Town Ain't Big Enough. Maybe I should have done that, and then I could have Get Out the Atraxa. See, again, this is just me not being very good with my deck. Okay? That is all there is to it here. Alright, so I can get the Atraxa with the Flood Pitch Drowner. And I can always bounce the Temporary Lockdown. So actually, This Town Ain't Big Enough is totally fine here. So I should just get something back. Cavern of Souls, certainly very good against me. Archangel of Wrath. Yep. I mean, that's why I have to go for the throat. The issue with my hand was I just didn't have enough interaction. Right? I just didn't have enough. Okay. So they named Angel. Excuse me. So the Overlord can't resolve. Well, I guess they can negate. Alright, let's go to the next game. I don't think I'm going to be double resolve the Archangel of Wrath. Temporary Lockdown is an interesting choice for them to play. I mean, I kind of like my setup. I might want another This Town Ain't Big Enough just to save against Wraths. But I kind of like everything else, right? I need to... Here's the thing. This deck shaved on the... Like, I need the Kaitos and the Enduring Curiosities to get things going. And then I also need to draw, like, either Duress or Negate. One of those, and not having any. Any is kind of tough. Alright, I'm gonna keep this, but I'm not super thrilled with it. I have a slower hand, but it is a controlling hand, and Negate is one of the most important cards in the matchup, I think. Or it's a very strong card at the very least. Yeah, playing Hopeless Nightmare here doesn't matter. Might as well just counter that, right? Yep. So they get to ramp. which is annoying. And then now I have the tough choice here of deciding if I should Enduring Curiosity here or not. And I think the correct play is to hold off on the card to keep up negate, because if they Sunfall me, it's a disaster. So being able to go end of turn Enduring Curiosity seems way, way better. Now, they could have Leyline Binding here, obviously. Wait, do they have Leyline Binding as well? Oh my gosh. That would be gross if they did. Okay. Hopeless Nightmare doesn't do too much here, so I'm just going to play out Stormchaser's talent just to have another creature in play and just keep up negate / Enduring Curiosity. Up the Beanstalk is good. Like, they have their card advantage engine and I have mine, right? So we're fine. That's also fine. All right, this is good. I mean, we're going to draw a ton of cards, right? If this is their game plan, we can keep up for sure. Fear of Isolation with Hopeless Nightmare is also very, very strong. I think I'm going to fire this off just to get in for some damage here, right? Because now, I mean, we're looking at an attack for 10. And then I can pick this up and play it again. I mean, in fact, should I just go for it? I feel like if they had, they could have Elspeth's Smite. Yeah. Let's see, I can go Fear of Isolation plus Hopeless Nightmare. And that's 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Got to think about this. You know what? I'm just gonna attack for 10. I'm gonna draw 6 cards here. I can just find another Hopeless Nightmare too. Or just 6 lands. Wow. Okay. All right. Big turn. Big turn. It's just, how do I want to do this? All right, what you got? Overlord of the... Okay, so they're just dead. Okay. This. Wow. What a deck. What a deck. We're just Dimir Burn now. That's all we are. Boom. Nice. All right. You know, this one was not as easy as playing that mono red deck. This one is definitely a lot trickier, and we have now ranked up to gold. Okay, 1-0. This one, probably not going to be able to play 4 full matches with this one. But we are figuring things out as we go. Okay. Doombringer. There's a YouTuber who goes by Doombringer. Oh, no, that's Doomwake, I think. Never mind. All right. This hand seems great. It just looks like a Dimir Midrange hand with a random Fear of Isolation, which, not at its best if I don't have the other 2-mana plays, but, I mean, it's still fine. Let's play the Spyglass Siren here. Okay. Ooh, they hit a cut down. Fortunately, they don't have the black source. That's good for me. So why don't we cut this down? They kept the cut down on top, but I'm still going to do this. Okay, we hit the land, and I'm actually going to choose not to attack here. The reason being is I don't want them to Kaito me. So I'm just going to keep my creature back. Obviously, if this is a 2-2, this isn't ideal, and I miss out on a point of damage, but I think that's fine. Let's play the Swamp. I want to be able to bounce Nowhere to Run, I think, so I'm just going to pass. I'm going to attack. Flood Pitch Drowner, sure. This is actually really interesting because I can go Fear of Isolation, bounce Spyglass Siren, replay it, and have two things in play. And that means they're going to cut down my Fear of Isolation, but I'll still have a Spyglass Siren to block the Flood Pitch Drowner. Alternatively, I can just Flood Pitch Drowner the Spyglass Siren. Maybe that's fine. I don't think they were interested in Urtying that, so... At least they don't have any of the card advantage stuff, but I guess if they Urtie me here, it's really bad for me. Or, sorry, Kaito me, but they did not, so... Very, very happy with that result, obviously. Alright, so let's go Nowhere to Run. This thing is still tapped down, so I'm not going to try to kill it just yet. And I will go ahead and Nowhere to Run the Flood Pitch Drowner here. And then play Fear of Isolation. Actually, I guess I could just play the other Nowhere to Run. In case they play a flash creature. Like, again, if they counter this, it's not a big deal. Yeah, and it looks like they're just playing kind of the fair version of this deck, so it's not too bad for me. I think this is going to get Urtied. Although I get the value back anyway, so it's not even that big of a deal. Oh, man. This interaction is just so strong. Not going to attack because I think the double block is not bad on the Urtie. Or, you know what? Maybe I should just run this out, honestly. Maybe I should have attacked. The thing is, I didn't want to be tapped out and let them Soulstone Sanctuary me this turn, which is why I did what I did. Just so much, like, just value. That is what this deck is capable of doing. You know what I mean? I will bounce the Nowhere to Run. I just think Nowhere to Run's fantastic here. Do I use the map token? I don't think so. Or, you know what? If anything, I can use the map token on the Otter. Okay. And then as the game goes long, right? Like, I still have access to Stormchaser's talent, so... Okay. I'm okay with that trade. Still keep that Nowhere to Run going. And another Nowhere to Run. Wow. So what can I get back with Stormchaser's talent? I guess it's a cut down. Might as well. And then I can actually take this to the top level, potentially. Given that they have the Restless Reef, I don't think I want to attack. I guess we're not really pressuring them a ton. That does make things interesting. Enduring Curiosity. Yeah, let's just kill it. Oh, you know what I should have done? I messed up. I should have upkeep that. Now the Restless Reef attacks and I have to block with my Otter. I'd rather not give them the card, I don't think. Okay, Hopeless Nightmare is not bad. That's a go for the throat that we got out of their hand. And they have a Restless Reef. Hold on, let's make sure we tap properly. Here, if they attack me with the Restless Reef, I'm okay with it. Right? It's like, yeah, that they spent their entire turn to do so. It's not a big deal. All right, land. And do I want to tick this up? Sure. I should probably upkeep Hopeless Nightmare, though. See what we find. I think the Scry is just going to be quite strong. Flood Pitch Drowner I like. And we just attack. Seems like they could have their own Flood Pitch Drowner. Which they probably want to use, to be honest. All right. Let's stun that. Enduring Curiosity. And let's kill that. All right. Got that one. Little bobbing and weaving. But I do feel like this is probably a good matchup for us. That would be my guess. And honestly, I'm just not really sure how to sideboard. I feel like the way that the normal Dimir midrange deck tries to get you is by sticking some kind of flyer and then trying to get you with the Curiosity and Kaito. So I do think the cutdowns are pretty important. I don't really care too much about any of these counter spells. I think Kaitos are probably bad on the draw. This town ain't big enough. That's also curious, right? It's just like, how good is that card in this matchup? How good is Get Out in this matchup? There's Gix's Command, Shieldred, and Preacher. Like, you can make... Here's the crazy thing about this matchup. You can just make an argument for all of these cards. I don't think I like Shieldred on the draw. It's just too easy to kill with the Flood Pitch Drowner and too easy to get tempoed out. Gix's Command, if they don't have a lot of counters, can be okay. If the game does go kind of long. The Preacher is probably a little bit sketchy as well. So do I want Gix's Command here? Or do I just want to go with the this town ain't big enough plan? I'm going to try this. I'm just going to try like all the interaction. And I'm going to just say Gix's... I'm just going to think maybe Gix's Command is a little bit too clunky. And we'll go with... just all the interaction, including the this town ain't big enough. I just feel like I'm going to have something in play, and so it'll still be fine. So we'll try that out. And okay, I mean, this is the type of hand that should be decent in the matchup if my opponent doesn't run away with the game. And hopefully maybe cards like this town ain't big enough will help with that. Obviously, this hand gets way, way better if my opponent mulligans. I don't think getting Hopeless Nightmare going here doesn't seem that strong. Gloomlake Verge, okay. So they probably have like a Flood Pitch Drowner or something, right? Fairy Mastermind, that's fine. I'm not drawing cards, and this thing flies, which is great. Yeah, like obviously Go for the Throat's good, but what I mean by this card, this is great, is just they can't Kaito me in any way. I'm just gonna play all the things. All of the things. What do they think's gonna happen if they attack like this? Kaito, go! I guess. I don't know. So now what do I do? They could Urtai me, I guess. But I guess I don't really need to do anything. I just attack. Oh, Enduring Curiosity. Sure. But now if I bounce this, it's just such a beating, isn't it? Like, if I bounce that, and I don't even think it's Hopeless Nightmare. It might just be Stormchaser's Talent. So bounce this and Stormchaser's Talent. Yeah. Yeah. They're like, nope. Nope, not playing this game with you, buddy. I just have more cheap things to play. And being able to bounce Enduring Curiosity or even Kaito, even if it's on my turn for 2 mana, is huge. So I think this deck was specifically built to make sure you have an edge specifically against the mirror. And I think it was very successful. All right, new opponent. Okay, well, not going to keep this hand of no lands. Good hand, though. Like, if I could replace a Stormchaser's Talent and a Go for the Throat with 2 lands, that would be so good. All right, let's mulligan this and certainly keep that. I don't like keeping a hand with 2 pain lands in it, so we'll put one of the Underground Rivers back. Concealed Courtyard. All right, we are basically playing against the Mirror. What do I want to discard in the Mirror? I think it's just going to be the Curiosity. It's just expensive, and I'd rather just keep all my cheap spells and play a bunch of lands. On the draw, it's just less likely that the Curiosity is going to have a huge impact as well. So. Well, this is interesting. It's like, what do I cut? Or not what do I cut? What do I do? I guess I just pass. If they play Hopeless Nightmare, what do I do? It's another question, right? I want to go with the most tempo-oriented line here, if possible. It's probably just discard Stormchaser's Talent, honestly. So they're playing the Esper variant, which isn't bad. Not bad in the slightest. Okay. They might just block the Flood Pitch Drowner just so they don't get tempoed out. So I can, one thing I keep forgetting is with this town ain't big enough, I can just bounce 2 of my own things. So I can just try to go crazy with with Stormchaser's talents and just, you know, just try to just make a million prowess otters and try to win that game. This town ain't big enough. Sure. The heck? All right, what do I want to do here? I mean, it's not great, but it's just like the only option that we have, so I'm going to go about it this way. How am I at such a low life total? Oh, it's, you know, that hopeless nightmare just like creeps up on you out of nowhere. Ah, yikes. That's not great. I mean, at least they can't attack me, hopefully. Okay. I feel like if they had a removal spell, they would have used it. Okay. I feel like I should probably play this Gloomlake Verge. I will say, this matchup is kind of silly. Like, there are some matchups I enjoy. This one, I admittedly tested this deck a little bit. I don't like this matchup very much. You're just both just like, how many 1-drops can I play? And it doesn't feel great. All right. Did they just draw nothing? Wow. I thought I was losing that game for sure. Okay. Well, let's bring in Cut Down for Sheltered by Ghost and Fear of Isolation and all that jazz. I don't like any of these big creatures, especially they're doing the This Town Ain't Big Enough stuff as well. So, there's that. I wonder if I want... Preacher might actually be not bad in this matchup. The reason why I say this is because if they play a similar removal suite, it'll be pretty hard to get rid of. Also, I don't think Kaito is very strong on the draw. And also when they have like This Town Ain't Big Enough to bounce this. Now, I think Enduring Curiosity is still good enough to keep though. Flood Pitch Drowner, much worse against a deck with Stormchaser's talent, I'll say. Yeah, I'm not sure what to cut here. Is it Flood Pitch Drowner or is it Preacher of the Schism? This could just be blasphemy, but I'll play the one Flood Pitch Drowner. They just have a bunch of X1s, so it's just like, it's just kind of inefficient. And I feel like I just want to be the control player and just play more robust cards. Like, I like a hand like this, I think, on the draw. All right, we will discard the first Cut Down. Yep. Let's cut it down. Hopeless Nightmare. I just want to make sure I hit all my land drops, you know what I mean? They missed their land drop. Their deck usually plays one Go for the Throat, so I feel like Preacher of the Schism will be quite good here. Oh, I just realized something, though. Oh, This Town Ain't Big Enough? Sure. That's fine. I mean, if your plan is to, like, cast a bunch of Hopeless Nightmares and not add to the board, like I feel like I'm going to be at a pretty big advantage here. Yeah, that doesn't do anything. So I want to go to 13 here, because that's what you want to do with Preacher of the Schism. Let's attack. Whoo! Nowhere to... It's a lot of action. All right, what you got? Another Hopeless Nightmare for me, or anything relevant? They actually do. They actually do have another Hopeless Nightmare for me. That's hilarious. I mean, I'm firing this off. So here is my question. They have something. How aggressive do I get here? Right? Like, I'm tempted to just activate the Soulstone Sanctuary and attack. Or I can just try to draw a bunch of cards with the Curiosity. I mean, that also seems really good, right? Oh, wow, okay. What are they doing? What are you doing? Whatever this was, it was not good. Let's put it that way. Sure. All right, time to fire off the Hopeless Nightmare. The thing is, they just can't beat my board, right? So, this should just get it done. Yeah. Alright. I mean, lots of cheap things. I don't even know how much more you get out of doing the Esper version. There's just, like, more redundancy, I guess, with the Nurturing Pixie. But unclear if that's worth, like, messing up your mana base. Like, a 3-color mana base is still a heavy cost. So, just not sure if it's worth. Alright, you know what? That was 3 matches. Why don't we just do one more? One more for the road. All right, last match here. On the play. And yeah, I mean, I got creatures and spells. Can't complain about creatures and spells. We have Nowhere to Run plus Fear of Isolation. Awesome, awesome combo. Although, them leading with the Hedge Maze. Means I probably am just going to run out a Naked Flood Pitch Drowner here. We'll see. Stormchaser's talent, never mind. I think I'm interested in just getting in as much damage as I can here. We'll keep Fear of Isolation. What can you have for 1 man? Oh, I guess it's like a bounce spell or something? Sure. I'm not even sure if I wanted that Fear of Isolation. We'll see how this goes. Oh, they could have a Bushwhack here. Analyze the pollen, okay. I'm just gonna kill this now. Yeah, the problem is... Yeah, okay. Well, at least I have a target. All right, now we can play the Fear of Isolation. Bounce nowhere to run. I mean, we're putting pressure, right? We're putting pressure on them. While still keeping up interaction so we don't get comboed out here. Cash grab, what are they going to hit? A Beanstalk? Okay. They might have a crab in their hand. 5 spells in the graveyard. Okay. Probably going to tap down my 2 flyers. I guess there's no real reason to ninjutsu this, right? I can just attack and then play Kaito, I guess, and keep it tapped down. And then hope they don't have a this town ain't big enough.
Just in time to save the day. Control the fight. Control the outcome.
I mean, the way I look at it is they don't have an immediate way to kill me, and I still will have an active Kaito here. And we just kind of have to wait and see what they have. Okay, Tolarian Terror. Yep. It's gonna certainly draw them a bunch of cards. And they still have access to 2 mana here. But only 5 spells, so... Oh no, that still works with that Dimir Crab. So this is a 3/4, I believe, so I can turn it into a 4/5. Okay, unsummon on Spyglass Siren and another Tolarian Terror. Fair enough. The annoying part about the Terrors is, of course, the Ward 2. Oh, I have nowhere to run. Does that change anything? All right, let's emblem this. Okay, so now we can go nowhere to run. On this Terror. And then I can go, this town ain't big enough. Bounce this, and bounce that. Alright. I hope that was good, I don't know. I mean, they're gonna draw a bunch of cards, but there are 2. And I'm just doing everything in my power to just try to finish them off here, right? But Up the Beanstalk is obviously extremely powerful here. And this is a very, very tricky matchup. Well, noting that with the Kaito, I can at least tap the Terror down. So we'll see what happens. But they just have the big mana advantage and card advantage, right? 31 cards left in their deck. And it really just comes down to how many big things they found, right? So this does have hexproof.
Just try to keep up.
Yeah. Okay. What now? This town ain't big enough, sure. I'm just trying to flood the board here. Flooding the board, okay? We have 7 creatures in play. And they're at 2 life, okay? So I'm hoping it's just a matter of them not having enough mana here. But it looks like they at least have an unsummon effect. I mean, this deck, once you get up the beanstalk going, it does feel pretty busted. Look at how many cards they have in their hand. 1 mana, draw 2 cards, 5/5? Oh no, the life gain is brutal. Oh, the life gain is brutal. Like, every last point was so important here. Okay, that doesn't gain them life at least. So them casting Cash Grab was actually good for me, right? Like, they were trying to find something and missed. And nowhere to run kills the token. Okay. Are they really attacking me? I mean, I did see somebody do this in the last event. So, is there something I'm missing? All right. I would be pretty surprised if they somehow found a way to come back from that. But you know what? Impressing showing nonetheless from the opponent there. We certainly want to bring in all of these. That negates... Does this do anything? I mean, it does something. Something is better than nothing. Like, I don't think nowhere to run and cut down is particularly strong here. Gix's command seems bad. Shieldred's probably not great when they just have a million bounce spells. Not sure if I'm convinced on Preacher of the Schism being fast enough. I do like the flash nature of the Tishana's Tidebinder and the fact that it can maybe counter some crabs and such. It does block the creatures very well, though. Like, I'm not sure how good this town ain't big enough is in this matchup. I mean, I guess it's more for just bouncing my own things for value. I'm not sure. But we'll try to try something like this. Like I said, Preacher of the Schism could be something to consider here. But let's do this. I feel like I'm the aggressor in this matchup, so I just want all my creatures. Or most of my cheap creatures. And try to play a tempo game here. I feel like their late game is just a little bit stronger than mine. Because they're playing up the Beanstalk deck. This hand is obviously terrible. Gonna ship this one back. Only Soulstone Sanctuary as my only mana source. Alright, this is way, way better. Double Stormchaser's Talent, double negate Tishana's Tidebinder. I'm gonna not keep the Tishana's Tidebinder, but I'm not sure if that's correct. Beanstalk? No! You hate to see it. I think this is a turn where I just have to play the Stormchaser's talent just to get some offense going, because without it, I just have nothing, right? And just kind of have to hope that whatever they play here is not too bad. I mean, up the Beanstalk is pretty good, for sure. Stormchaser's talent's also very, very good. I need a spell. Yeah? That counts. All right, let's beat down. And I can use the Stormchaser's talent to get back This Town Ain't Big Enough, which is pretty good. But we are all in on the Otter plan. They need to cast some spells to fuel their graveyard to be able to play their big creatures. That was extremely good. Extremely good, them having their own This Town Ain't Big Enough. Maybe I shouldn't have cut This Town Ain't Big Enough. The only issue is, because I'm on the draw, I just haven't had the opportunity to keep up the negates. Or, like, to cast negates. You know what I mean? That's the issue. I think I just have to play Kaito here. It's like, all of these options don't feel very good. But I'm just...
Don't worry, paulcheon. I've got this.
Alright, so they're doing everything they can to survive, but I get to get some value here with the Kaito, which is pretty good. Alright. Flood Pitch Drowner, what does that do? I don't think I want it. Enduring Curiosity is an interesting one. But this is a big turn for my opponent. And I feel like I'm a pretty big dog. So they get a land there. That puts 2 spells into their graveyard. Okay, we get to play the river. And I think I just attack. Do I counter this? Just get really aggressive? I don't want... Ooh. Enduring Curiosity... the land is not terrible here because I can just... No! I messed up! Oh, shoot. Well, to be fair, I can get back This Town Ain't Big Enough. But I don't know that I wanted that land. I don't know that I wanted that land. 3 spells in the graveyard for the opponent. A bunch of cards in hand. Okay, that's fine. That is totally fine because we have the negate. So I think we got this because their game plan is to use This Town Ain't Big Enough. And if that's the case, then we are golden. Boom. Yes. Oh, man. And there you have it, folks. There you have it, folks. Dimir Midrange. You know, I've actually... there's a lot of cool things you could be doing in Standard right now. And that's not always the case, right? Like, there's the mono white, gain a bunch of life, draw a billion cards deck. There was that Leyline Gruul deck, which just won a tournament, which kind of came out of nowhere because people really stopped playing that deck. I saw Green-White Tokens deck win the 10K last weekend as well. And now we have Dimir bounce, Esper bounce. It's just another take, another... just kind of evolution of that Dimir midrange deck. Before it was just a good old-fashioned Dimir midrange deck. Then it tossed in some Kaitos and Curiosities. Then we saw Some people play Feybloom Trick to go over the top in the mirror, but this feels like the ultimate way to go over the top in the mirror because Stormchaser's talent means basically you never run out of gas if the games go really, really long. Just gives you another cheap thing to play and works really, really well with This Town Ain't Big Enough and Fear of Isolation. Fear of Isolation, being able to rebuy Stormchaser's talent, Hopeless Nightmare, and Nowhere to Run is also just such a good value engine that this all just works together really, really nicely. And honestly, I mean, this card, again, This Town Ain't Big Enough, just kind of coming out of seemingly nowhere. I mean, it's been around for a bit now, but just looking at it, you would never have guessed that this bounce spell would be good enough for standard. But it turns out you mess around with enough knobs to the point where for 2 mana, you can bounce 2 of your things. And then with a bunch of great 1 mana enter the battlefield effects, you can get a bunch of value. Like, it is just enough to get this to be good enough in basically any blue deck that has a bunch of cheap cards. And Stormchaser's talent and This Town Ain't Big Enough is the combination that kind of got things going. And there you have it. Another really, really solid deck here in Dimir Bounce. We played Dimir Bounce. We now played Gruul. Those are kind of the 2 pillars of the format. There's also Domain. But the next deck that I want to try out, if people are continuing to show interest in more standard, is that Selesnya Tokens deck that took down the 10K last weekend. So let me know in the comments below if you like some of this standard content. Now, admittedly, I'm not the best standard player out there, but I try my best. And I feel like you watching me play kind of replicates you picking up this deck and trying to figure out what to do at the same time. So, you know, we're kind of learning things as we go at the same time. All right. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, as I really do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for more daily videos just like this. If you've enjoyed all of this content and wanted to support the channel in another way, my Patreon is the best way to do so. That's patreon.com/paulcheon. Additionally, check out tcgplayer.com for all your TCG singles and sealed product needs. Whether you need to buy some booster boxes just to crack open some packs, or some cards to round out your latest standard deck, modern deck, or commander deck, check out tcgplayer.com and click that affiliate link in the description below. Last but certainly not least, check out heavyplay.com for premium Magic the Gathering supplies and accessories. If you want top-of-the-line deck boxes, playmats, sleeves, dice boxes, and more, go to heavyplay.com/paulcheon for 10% off your first order to swag out your deck, everything you bring to the tournaments, so you are best set up to win your events. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.